try to look back, right? There may be things that you regret. There may be things that was happy, fun, but in those moments, in those that past, there's things there that's going to lead to your future, right? There's skills that you develop. There's things that you learned that you can apply to whatever it is that you're going to do next.
Mr. Joel Lewis.
Yes.
How are you?
I am fantastic. Great to be here.
Yeah. We get to chat. You know, you and I have known each other a long time, and I think we've maybe done one podcast episode, maybe two podcast episodes together.
I think too.
On my old show. And I am so excited to chat with you about how you're using marketing in the financial space. But in order to do that, I think we need to back up a little bit. And first off, just for people who don't know who you are and what you do, give us a little intro, sir.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. How do I fast track this? Who I am, Joel Lewis, parent to Haitian. I am one of 6. I'm number 4. My parents figured out how to get here to America legally, and did all the right things and got us into private school, which was very, very challenging at the time. And from there, I ultimately went to college. Got recruited by Intel Corporation out in. I was in New York at the time. That started me down my path, my engineering kind of path. So when Intel recruited me, I was actually getting my associate's degree, and from there, I was like, oh man, this amazing company. I want to go into engineering. Intel paid for my college tuition, which was amazing. And I was with Intel for 14 years. It was an amazing company. Loved every moment of it. 14 years in, or 13, 12 years in, they announced that they were going to be closing the doors in the Massachusetts facility, which was, a big hit. Right, because it was all I knew. I was, still a relatively young guy. Only company I've ever worked for, or corporation, was climbing the corporate ladder, doing all the right things that your parents tell you to do. And then now all of a sudden, this rug gets pulled from underneath you, right? And first lesson of having all your eggs in one basket, right? Which I think unfortunately, a lot of Americans do, right? We have all our eggs in one basket, and as soon as that rug is pulled from you, it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do, right? And then you unfortunately have to settle. Well, the great thing for me was that Intel gave us ample notice. I think it was almost 2-year notice, and I was one of the last managers. I mean, literally the last manager to leave the night shift. So I had plenty of time to figure it out. But there was, with 3 at this time, I had 3 kids, daughters, my wife. There was a lot of pressure, right, to figure it out. And, again, by the grace of God, I had a friend who talked to me about podcasting. Probably somewhere around there is when
when you and I met.
Exactly. Talked about podcasting, and I started listening to podcasts, and it started sparking, a mind once revealed, opened, right, to a new thing, will never go back, right? Yeah. And I was like, wait, there's this whole idea of entrepreneurship. There's this whole idea of making money from your own efforts, your own energy, right, without relying on someone else. And so I latched on to that because I knew what I could do, right, if I put my mind to something. So I started listening to these podcasts, started learning about entrepreneurship. I eventually launched my own podcast to figure out how do you start a business with a family with children, and our kids have medical conditions. And that ultimately led me to figuring out my superpower, figuring out what I wanted to, the change I wanted to make, or the impact I wanted to make in this world. And I realized that I'm not the doctor, I'm not the lawyer, I'm not the coder, I'm not the individual saving lives, the nurse, but I am a tech geek, right? Technology comes to me easily. And they had these amazing individuals who had amazing programs that were changing lives, but they were struggling with the technology side.
Yeah.
So I saw where I could combine my passion, what I was great at, with a need that was in the space, and in through me doing that work, I would help them spread what they were doing, right? So from there, I launched a digital marketing agency. 9 years in, worked with doctors who are curing type 2 diabetes, worked with e-commerce coaches who are helping moms, have diversity of income, registered nurse who had a program for moms and dads on first aid so that they wouldn't have to pay that $100 co-visit every time their child had something going on. So it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, and that I love that story because it, like you said, and I had never heard you put it that way. You're not the one who's going to go save the lives, but you can enable, you can support very well those people who are, and especially when you're talking about entrepreneurship. The now let's bring it to current times, and now you are the CMO of Planet Wealth, and how does that, I'm not going to put the words in your mouth, how does that now translate into, I mean, I see the connection with entrepreneurship and changing lives. So how do you see that?
Yeah. So, again, I think we all, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, we all think about our legacy, what we're going to leave behind, right? So it did take me a while to get to that, with age, you get wisdom, right? It took me a while to figure out, okay, what impact am I really making with this tech stuff behind the scenes, right? And what I realized and I started falling in love with is with individuals, companies that had a movement, a mission, or something that they were doing that it was bigger than them, right? And they were changing lives, right? So over the 9 years of doing that work, I realized I love working with those type of companies. So when I started working with Planet Wealth, initially through my agency, and, they introduced me to this movement of closing the wealth gap. Well, listen, my parents are Haitian, I know the wealth gap. Listen, I understand it. I feel it to the core, right?
Yeah.
That resonated with me right away. And then, it was initially working with them as a contractor through my agency was to really see, okay, do these guys really live up to what they're saying, right? Does this program that they're putting together actually make sense? This software that they're building, can it actually change lives, right? And after a couple of months of working with them and helping to build the organization and how things were going to kind of come together, I realized, this is something that I can back, right? This is something I want to be a part of, because again, I love working with all the small businesses I've worked with over the years. This is a company that is well funded, has an amazing mission, and can make a massive impact in multiple verticals, multiple individuals. I can support that. And then I became CMO.
Yeah. And then, so now bring it back. I see that clearly, absolutely clearly. And your entrepreneurial spirit to be able to, I just see it translated into now you can help individual entrepreneurs through the company Planet Wealth build their wealth and bridge the wealth gap individually. So it's like you have, you work for one company, but now you have all of these individuals, all of these entrepreneurs that you can support in whatever asset class or whatever they're trying to build in their lives.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things I learned very early in my career, even when I was at Intel, is that I can't sit still, right? I want to get in there in the engineer, right? Get in there. What's the problem? Let's fix the problem, optimize it, create all the SOPs, and then move on to the next problem, right?
Yeah.
So the beauty of, and that's what was exciting about my agency, right? Because we never niche down, which is crazy in business, right? You want to niche down, you want to wonder bread it out, right? You don't want to be artisanal, right? Because then it's very hard to be profitable. But working with multiple different type of businesses was always exciting, frustrating at times, but also exciting. And with Planet Wealth, having multiple deal rockets. Each deal rocket is a new problem. Each deal rocket is a new audience, right? Whether it's real estate, whether it's collectible cars, whether it's franchising. Just recently we were talking outside about collectible cards, collectible sneakers, right? I mean, there's so many opportunities where we could open this up for whether you're 18, right? And your parent have an 18-year-old, 15-year-old, and you see that they're into Pokemon or something, right? Leveraging that deal rocket to start showing your child entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Or if you're 65,
Yeah.
right, and you want to do real estate or franchising or anything like that, it's a wide open market, and it's just beautiful what they're doing and the vision that we have as a company. So it's always going to be exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now bring that, let's kind of get into a little bit of the weeds. All right. So your story is incredible. You know, even though I've known you for so many years, every single time we talk on something like this, whether it's one of the master classes we do or boot camps we do, or like this interview, I learned something new about you and your life and your story. And that's really what all of this is about. Each of us has a separate story, our own story. We're all human. We all have the same desires. We all want freedom. We all want love and acceptance and all those things. But individually, we have such different stories that brought us to those desires. So now let's take that and someone listening to our podcast, and they're thinking, okay, yeah, great. You've got me excited. This is a great way to do. I'm here. I'm ready to go. Now let's bring it into the marketing realm and talk about the translation of the skills and the experience that you acquired through those 9 years of entrepreneurship, but also Intel. I know that influences everything you do as well. And how can let's say that 18-year-old who wants to, you know, do collectible sneakers, or that 65-year-old that wants to do real estate, what are some of the things from a marketing standpoint that will set them up to start that success without having to be funded like Planet Wealth is and have to spend oodles of money on advertising in Facebook or YouTube or a whole landscape that is more of a jungle than the Amazon, as far as I'm concerned. Where do they start? What do they do?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And as you were talking, the quote that keeps coming back, there's only a few quotes that are locked in my brain that I love, and it seems like you could apply them to so many scenarios, right? And one of the quotes is from Steve Jobs, where it says, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect the dots looking back.
Yeah.
Right. And throughout my entire journey, even though I know that, I've heard that quote, 15 years, 20 years ago, whatever, right? As I've been going through my journey, I can pinpoint so many scenarios or so many times where that became true. Okay. So again, like I talked about the Intel, feels like the rug is being pulled from underneath me. All of this management, all the skills, all the training I went through management, right? It's like, now I'm starting my own business. All those skills,
they're gone.
They're gone, right?
I'm not putting
into you. Exactly. But I ended up building an agency and I'm managing people, right? To now I'm CMO and I have a whole team, right? And there's so many points in life where I've been able to look back and see how a point in life, whether it was a difficult point in time, easy, a fun, I can apply it to something new, a new adventure that I'm going into, right? And that's a place I would tell everyone to start, right? Is try to look back, right? There may be things that you regret, there may be things that was happy, fun, but in those moments, in those that past, there's things there that's going to lead to your future, right? Yeah. There's skills that you develop, there's things that you learned that you can apply to whatever it is that you're going to do next. So that would be first, right? The second, if we're specifically talking about funding, is leveraging your network, right? And I'd be the first to say that I do not leverage my network as much as I should. I have an amazing network, but I don't tap into that network. Right. But when I have, it's led to amazing results, right? The power of a community, and I think, I wasn't around in the times where there was tribal, right? Yeah. But I see now how powerful tribal can be, right? And we see that with influencers. We see that with people who all of a sudden like skyrocket. They find their people and they leverage that to build their empire, right? So I would say, understand your community, get them, figure out what you want to do, right? Look back, figure out what you want to do, and then figure out how can you leverage your community to help you with that, right? that's an important word. It's not you're begging people for money. You're not asking them to do the work for you. You're asking for help, right? And if you have the right community and you're asking the right people are usually willing to help.
Absolutely. I have some words for that. And, this is one of the reasons that you and I have been connected for so long. Because the first thing you mentioned about looking back and looking at what you've done and the things you've enjoyed, the lessons you learned, all of those inform who you are now.
100%.
And not just who you are now, but the way you look at the world.
Yes.
And to me, that's innovation. And I love that you brought Steve Jobs into that, because we always think of Steve Jobs as innovation. We think of Elon Musk. We think of all these geniuses that are innovators. But you know what? Every single one of us is an innovator. We are innovative because we take what we've learned, how we look at the world, and we apply it to what's in front of us. If we allow ourselves. Right?
Yes.
Most of us, we're like, oh, I can't do that. I've got to follow this guy's framework, or I can't do that. I've got to do it this way because that worked for them. And everyone listening to our voices, please understand, you have the permission, you have the power to take your own innovation and look at what you want to do and do it the way you want to do it, the way you look at it. So I use the word innovation for that. And then exactly, community. And then once you tap your community, what I hear you saying is, that's how you create your movement. So those are so powerful. That the way to look at that: innovation, community, and movement. And again, most of the people listening to us are like, I don't do a movement. That's for the Britney Spears or the Beyoncés or that's for them. No, it's not. It's for you. And the more people we have with their micro communities,
yes,
actually creating movements, that's actually how we change the world.
Yeah.
That's actually how we do it. So now let's come down even deeper. And we started, 30,000 feet. We're coming down to about 10,000 feet now.
Yep.
Let's get down to rubber meeting the road.
Yes.
And so how do I do that? You said, okay, just activate your community. Well, okay, great. Thanks.
Right.
How, what do I do? Steps. Give me steps.
Okay. You want me to give the secret sauce?
Yeah. Give me those steps, baby. And what do I do? Because that's why we're here.
Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. So again, once you've identified, you've looked back, you have to do that reflection, right? Which is sometimes can be scary. And to your point, you do that reflection, and you have to be willing to learn from it. And you have to be willing to take that step. Right? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. You can't stay where you are. I think there was something you said brilliantly a few days ago. The person who you are right now, the person that got you to where you are now, is not going to be the same person that's going to get you to where you want to be. Right? But you don't get from where you are now to that next person without taking those steps. Right? So you figure out what you want to do the reflection, and then to the specific steps towards starting to leverage your community is you have to figure out where you're going to have them communicate.
Yeah.
Right. If you're a younger generation, maybe you want to do WhatsApp. Right.
Yeah.
If you're kind of like Gen X, maybe you want to do Facebook. Right. Or you could use any platform that makes sense. Right. You want to make it so that the community that you're building, it's somewhere that they go often, right? You don't want them having to download some new thing that they've never used before, right? And you want to just start getting them together and saying, look, here's what I'm working on. Here's why I'm passionate about what I'm working on, right? Here's what's in it for you, right? Because of course, individuals want to support, but they also want to understand what's in it for them. It doesn't have to be monetary.
Yeah.
It could be just feel good, right?
Yeah.
And then you start to invite individuals into that community space, whether it's, again, WhatsApp, Facebook, or Mighty Networks, or anything it's going to be. And then from there, you just start sharing. It's like you're creating your own mini reality TV show, right?
Yeah.
Your own mini movement, right? And you're sharing all the steps along the way, right? And make it fun, make it entertaining, right? Gamify it if you can, in whatever way you got to be creative, right? And in thinking through that process, I remember when I was launching my podcast, I was getting great ideas on what to do from my community, right?
Yeah.
From some of my friends. It's like, oh, why don't you do this, right? And I would use those ideas and it would help to grow my community, right? And you just want to start small, right? There's I know I'm hitting a lot of quotes today, right? It's like, what's the quote? People overestimate what they could do in a year and drastically underestimate what they could do in 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And I would have
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I would have never thought that I would be here, right?
Yeah.
But you just got to take those small steps. So anyway, hopefully I answered the
Yeah,
question. We can go
totally.
deeper if we need to.
Yeah, totally. No, and I just want to point out a couple things that you said. In order to, so the reason we started with the mindset shifts that you went through, from Intel to what is this entrepreneur thing, to I could start my own podcast and talk to very interesting people doing really incredible things and making lots of money. And then I can take that and I can go build an agency.
Yeah.
Those, you had to believe you could do that.
Right.
You had to actually put yourself out there.
Yes.
And I know we had lots of conversations where I was like, Joel, do more podcast, do more stuff on social media. You got to share this. You got to share that. Regardless, you have to be willing to put yourself out there and talk to people in this way about these things you're passionate about. And if you're listening to our voice and you're willing to do that and you think, okay, yeah, I think I can do that. It's important enough to me. And I'm only going to reference a couple of conversations that we've had with people who are actually getting funding for things that are really important to them. And they have movements that they're trying to create. Like one gentleman whose grandmother raised him, and he promised her before she passed that he was going to help as many people access the American dream and have access to affordable housing that he possibly could, because he saw how much she struggled to raise him. How can anyone not go along with that?
Right.
And so he has to have the ability to articulate that, to show that passion, and to put himself out there.
Put yourself out there.
So if you're willing to do that, what Joel's basically saying is gather people around you. Gather people around you who are like, whoa, who is this? I'm so excited. I've never seen this side of you.
Right.
They're going to say that. There are going to be people who are like, you're ridiculous. How can you do that? This isn't going to make a difference. Look at this and that and this. And they'll point to all the things that are in society that'll tell you can't do it. There are going to be those people, but there are also going to be those people who are going to say, wow, man, that's incredible. Yes, I want to support you. Tell me how I can help, or make sure you let me know what's going on, or how can I help? And all you have to do is say, share it.
Yeah.
Share it to those you know, because, you know, we all know 7 degrees of separation, right? Good old Kevin Bacon, right? So you have no idea who those people know.
Right.
So once we shift that mindset and we say, okay, yes, I'm willing to put myself out there because this is important enough.
Yeah.
Now we can look at how do we share it with our immediate audience, and then we have to get a little deeper and go, how do we share it with their audiences?
Yeah.
How do we keep compounding this
Yeah.
to get more and more people to support what we're doing? Because give me a percentage, right? So if we get 100 people who are interested in what we're doing, how many of those might actually be willing to invest in me monetarily? Just in terms of a percentage.
Yeah, that's a great question. You're probably looking at somewhere around 10%, right? It could be higher, right? But to your point, there's this term like user generated content, right?
Yeah.
So you build this community. The individuals who are in that community may not, let's say from a monetary standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you're raising capital. The individuals in that community may not be able to or interested in investing in whatever you're doing.
Right.
But 7 degrees of separation, they may know someone. They are most likely know someone that what you're working on is exactly what that person is interested in, and they would make that connection, right? And that's where that compounding starts to happen. But in the community, you want to, again, there's the gamification. So for example, let's use ClickFunnels, right, as a great example. ClickFunnels, for the life of ClickFunnels, they've always had this thing called Dream Car.
Yeah.
It was like, wait, they're giving away a dream car, right? You could literally every single month they'll give you a check for $500, and you take that and you get your dream car. You lease your dream car.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, well, why are they doing that? Well, they could give you a trophy. They could give you $500 cash, but who's going to go on social media and post
Just
every month that they have $500 in their hand? No one's going to do that, right?
yeah,
But who's going to go on social media saying, I'm picking up my dream
dream car.
car
Yeah.
and post that, right? While they're driving. And now they go to parties. Wait, how do you have that car? Oh, because of ClickFunnels. And now
Yeah.
it becomes a conversational
Yeah.
piece, right?
And they are associated with
Right.
that prize, with
Right.
that status,
Right.
with that that availability to that you can do this too.
Right. So you have to get creative. Once you have that community, it's all work. It's not. This is not a silver bullet, right?
Right.
It's all work. You have to get creative. You have to do the work. You have to educate, entertain, inspire that community,
Right.
and then periodically ask for help. Right. When I had my podcast, I knew there was moms in my community. My podcast is Startup Dad.
Yeah.
I would ask moms, "Hey, do you know a dad?" Right, and then they would. And my community would grow, and my podcast listenership would increase and increase without any ads, right? Because I was tapping my community
You said three things: educate, inspire,
and entertain.
and entertain.
Yes.
Educate, entertain, inspire. Please tattoo that on the inside of your eyeballs. Because that's the crux. That's the framework for any kind of marketing sharing that you're talking about. So, wow. So take that now and bring it to Planet Wealth and how you're helping people in marketing do exactly that. So we kind of give us the framework of what we're working on right now.
Yep.
That marketing is really focused on helping these people accomplish their goals.
Yeah. What I love about Planet Wealth is that, again, huge vision, right? Closing the wealth gap, bridging the wealth gap, right? Okay. Well, how do you make that happen, right? Well, software as a service, as we know, has changed the world, changed the game for a lot of things that were not accessible or very difficult or challenging or took a lot of time or a lot of money. SaaS has made those things available to a lot of people now, right? And a lot of companies have grown massive with leveraging software, right? So what I love about Planet Wealth is there's a SaaS, but then there's a whole ecosystem supporting the software, right? Because some things you can't put into the SaaS, especially with what we're doing here in terms of raising capital, right? So you need all the legal paperwork. You need to know all the regulations, all that kind of stuff. All of that is built into the software. Okay, you need ways to email and database and manage the database, manage all the funds that's coming in. All of that is built into the ecosystem, right? But then, okay, I built all of this. If you build it, will they come? Well, now you need to do marketing, right? You need to build that community, that tribe, everything we talked about, right? So, and that's part of the ecosystem and something that sorry about that. And something that we've put together for everyone. Even though could be scary, even though there's a mindset shift, we have all of it built out in a way that's straightforward. It's easy. It's a full blueprint that you follow. We really believe in the journey of 1,000 miles. Begin with a single step. You have to walk before you can run. Or Jude said yesterday, you have to crawl before you can walk. You have to walk before you run. Yeah. So we've built it out where it's not scary and it's a full process, step by step, that takes you from zero, never doing a community or ever reaching out to your audience, to building that out in a very streamlined way, and then ultimately having marketing assets that you can easily edit, you can easily tweak, or you can use as is to start to reach out to your audience. Because once you start to post, once you start to do anything in life, right? You start to figure it out, right? Yeah. But you have to put enough hours in to start to see what's working, right? So instead of individuals starting with a blank slate, what am I going to post? We've created assets that individuals could start to leverage, see how their audience responds to it, and then they say, "Oh wow, that really worked well." Now let me replicate that,
Yeah.
right? And then ultimately getting their investors and
Yeah.
being able to raise the capital that they're looking for their venture.
Yeah. And from a marketing standpoint, so because I know we have several different departments in that ecosystem, so from a marketing standpoint, what do you think is the biggest obstacle for people to be able to overcome in order to take advantage of all of those incredible resources that you have?
Yeah, people are afraid of getting on and putting themselves out there, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty about creating that community, because once you have that community going and it starts to build momentum, you don't necessarily have to be posting on your personal profile, right? And here's the thing. If you could guarantee success, someone would put themselves out there,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
It's the fear of putting yourself out there and then failing, right? Or feeling like you failed. You and I have completely different definitions of failure than everyone else, right?
Yes.
But it's that fear, right?
Yeah.
So by creating that community, now you're posting in the community, people who've already raised their hand that said, yes, I'm interested in following this journey along with you, right?
Yeah.
So that we and then once you start having success, of course, then you let's say, for example, a real estate investor using our platform, they've gotten that first property, that 4-unit property.
Yeah.
They've successfully raised $100,000, $200,000, $1 million, $5 million. Of course, next time around, they'll be significantly more comfortable posting on their social media profile, right? Which is completely fine, right? You got to walk before you run.
Yeah.
And then that will help to build more momentum, because now they're not just posting in the community, they're posting on their profile, which will lead back to the community, which will potentially lead to more investors.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, because that also goes into or ties into how many people that we've talked to that, like I said in the beginning, all right, yeah, you got me excited. Let's go and talk about it. Many of us, we think we can go straight from zero because now we're motivated and we've yes, I think this is possible. We go from zero to a 100 door, complex, high rise. Right. And we're like, no, I can do that. Look, you just showed me. You've got the framework. You've got the blueprint. I can do that. Yes, you can do that. How many, this is another thing, we keep talking about Jude, he's our real estate expert, that he talks about. He says, okay, yeah, you can do that, but that's a big project and you're going to make mistakes. So do you want to make the big mistakes on that big project? Or do you want to start a little bit smaller and walk before you run and make some mistakes on the smaller project that you learn and grow from to be able to get you ready for that big project? Yeah. Every star, every Beyonce, every, whoever you're talking about, Snoop Dogg, I don't care who it is, they didn't immediately start in the stadium.
Overnight success.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They didn't go from never being on stage before to the stadium. Mm-hmm. They did look at Justin Bieber, right? Look at the YouTube and, all that. That's the way we work. That's the way our brains expand. They don't expand immediately.
Right.
At least unless you're some genius that I'm not. So in that sense, yes, we need to do both from the standpoint in Planet Wealth. We need to encourage that mindset shift and to completely support that motivation to do what they want to do. But we also, when we provide that framework, have to allow for those mistakes to happen, because we can't put the guardrails on every single thing that's happening in your life right now that's going to impact your success. Yeah. How do you help people do that? How do you help people make those mistakes and allow them to make those mistakes from a marketing standpoint to be able to grow to that big project and overcome that obstacle? Okay, now I've overcome the obstacle that I can talk about it and I can put myself out there. But how about, putting myself out there for a 4-plex rather than a 100?
Yeah, it's very easy, and it is something that is again, I say easy because of the way my brain works from an engineering standpoint, but it is something that is scary to people as well. But it's data.
Yeah.
Right. And again, in the Planet Wealth ecosystem, we are managing the data. We are ensuring that, whether you're issuer A or issuer B or issuer C, issuer today or issuer a year from now, we are continuously monitoring the data, seeing what the data is telling us, what's working in marketing right now, what's working on Facebook, what's working on Instagram, what's working on TikTok, what are the new platforms coming out, what's working on campaign pages, right? So we're monitoring that data so that we feed that back to our issuers to tell them, hey, here's what's currently working, and how they could improve, right? But you're going to make mistakes, but by having data, right? The problem comes when you don't look at the data and you continue making those mistakes, right? And they start to compound. Versus looking at the data, right? And I guess this is kind of like full circle, right? Just like we talked about in the beginning, looking back in your life, looking at that data, right? That's there. It's for your life. There was mistakes that was made. There were strengths. There were weaknesses. They were, not regretting things, but looking at that data and then seeing how to optimize your life going forward, right? So same thing, we optimize the data. We're constantly optimizing so that we could find those mistakes and then fix them and then do better and better.
The obstacles that you had to overcome. Because data represents the past. It already happened.
It's already happened.
It's something that you did that produced that data. That is the past. You're in the present now, looking at that past and thinking, okay, how am I going to tweak this? How am I going to change this for the future? So it's bringing all three of those time frames into decision making. And I love how you do that. I love, because that is, without that data, what are we doing? We have no clue.
No clue.
We're just like, I think this works. It's a gut feeling.
You're hoping on luck.
No. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that with investors' money. We don't want to do it with our own money. We don't want to do it with our time, which is our number one resource, our most scarce resource.
Exactly.
So with that in mind, thank you for listening to this podcast and spending your time with us. And I really sincerely hope it's been valuable. So thank you for that. We've brought it again from 30,000 feet to 10,000 feet and now ground level. You have to look at data. What one piece of advice would you give? What final piece of advice would you give people listening to our voice that either they're gung ho and they're ready to go and they've bought properties before, or they've built a business before and it either worked or didn't work or had to change it and tweak it, or they're completely on the sidelines thinking, can I even do this? Is there anything that you can tell them that might help them make the decision of what they're going to do next?
Yeah, and I'll give the advice that, to me, I try to always follow, and this will resonate. Unfortunately, it may only resonate with your audience, the audience that are parents. But if you've had nephews, nieces, right,
pets,
pets, we all know, we've all heard, we've all seen how fast children grow, right? And 3 kids, multiple nieces and nephews. I was at a wedding this past week, and now I'm the uncle. I'm the older one. I'm the older uncle on the dance floor.
Isn't that freaky?
Yeah, why is this old guy on the dance floor, right? So, and it's crazy because at the one point I was the younger one, right? And I was like, I got years until I get there, right? The point here is that as you're seeing those kids grow, right? Everyone says, oh, cherish it. They go so fast. Here's what's happening. Your life is also growing. Right? That time is passing for you, but it's like we can't see it. Right?
Because we're in it.
We're in the frame. Right? You can't see the picture when you're in the frame, but we can see it in our kids. So every time you acknowledge it in your kids, in your cousins, in your nieces, your nephews, whatever, understand that your life is also moving forward. Right? So do you want another 5 years to go by still where you are now? Is that what you want? Right? You have a choice. And earlier you talked about freedom, right? And I think as an entrepreneur, for a lot of entrepreneurs will say freedom. And I realized recently it's choice. I want.
Absolutely.
I want the power of choice. I want to be able to choose if I want to do first class and not think about it. I want to be able to choose, do my daughter goes to violin lessons and my other daughter's in cello? Do I want to put my kids in private? I want the power of choice, right? And you have the choice to allow the next 5 years to look the same as the previous 5 years, right? But understand that that time is going to pass for you as well. And you have to make a choice. How do you want it to look 5 years, 10 years from now?
That's Beautifully said. I can't add anything to it except to say thank you for bringing it back full circle to the
Yes.
the idea of life and what we want to do with it. So, Mr. Joel Lewis, thank you for spending this time with me.
You're very welcome.
We get to see each other almost every day,
Yes.
but we don't get to have these kinds of conversations every day. So I really appreciate it. So
You're
I
welcome.
hope everyone had a great time. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you had some wonderful lessons you can take with you. And if this was interesting to you, I encourage you to subscribe to the show, to share it with any of your other friends that are along the same path or even thinking about this. And yeah, do the best you can every day. And remember, as your kids grow, as everything around you grows, even that tree in the yard, the time is passing for you too, and you get to make choices. So thanks for spending this time with us and choosing to do that. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode of Planet Wealth Fortunes of the Brave, check out our other videos for more insights and strategies to elevate your financial freedom. You can subscribe right here and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Join our community and take your financial future to the next level. I'll see you in the next video.